We're all suffering in some type of way, whether that be just aspects of gender, sexuality, mental health, race, like abilities, like we're all being kept out in different ways because we all come from a background and some type of experience that causes us to have a little bit harder time existing.
Hello, and welcome back to another amazing episode of Denhta. Hi, how are you? For people that are freshly listening, Denhta is Cascadene for Hi, how are you? I figured that was very fitting because I get to come and talk to a bunch of amazing Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and today is no exception because I have the fantastic Morgan Rashke with me.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing not bad. Just got in just for you.
Just for me. Perfect. We're ready to have a good time. Would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, my full name is Robert Morgan Rashke, they, he, and I'm from West Bank First Nations, but I was born and raised on Treaty 8 territory, the northern part of the province, in a little small town called Chetwynd.
Chetwynd.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was treaties in BC.
Mm-hmm. It ends around Prince George, so that's where Treaty 8, it goes into the mountains a little bit, but then it stops there, so it's kind of in the part of the province where the mountains meets the prairies.
Because Treaty 8 goes into Alberta, right? Yeah, so they just like took a chunk and they're like, you're part of us.
Yeah. So
but also, again, our Indigenous borders don't follow the colonial borders, so I need to remind myself of that.
No, our territory is cut off by the 49th parallel, so half our nation is in Washington.
Yeah, exactly. The Silk Nation goes right down there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that should do.
It also goes over to Arrow Lakes, where the Snakes lived, and all the way up until like Revelstoke, and then down to Colville.
For the Silk people.
Yeah.
You're all over the place.
Yeah, everywhere.
Just traveling around, having a good time, procreating, creating a bigger area for yourself.
Yeah, we love making grandbabies.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Morgan, I've known you for a couple years now, and I met you through our fantastic friend, Madeline. Yeah, who I adore. They were here on a podcast as well. I think I can't even remember, episode 2 or 3, whatever it is. Anyways, are you artistic as well? How did you get into that little circle?
Well, I've done different art things like all across my life. I feel like everybody in my family has their own little artistic niche. My brother is like every niche. He's good with lots of different mediums. I feel like I'm more of on the poetry side, writing, but also sometimes do like illustrations, doodles, all that, but it's more the words that are my passion.
The words are your passion.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that. It's funny that you're talking about words. I'm going to put a little my own spin on there. I mentioned earlier about my ex-husband, and he's trying to get me back. So he's really good with his words as well. And he writes for the things. He wrote me a pros and cons list. And then on the bottom was, you're getting old and ugly. I know you when you were young and beautiful, so I'll always have that memory. That's it.
It's like kissing you on the cheek and then slapping you across the
face.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like, I just want you to know you're getting old and ugly, so you might as well come back in with me.
Like, don't waste your time. Like, you know this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when he's really desperate.
Yeah. Or like, just like grasping at straws maybe.
Yeah, just taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
Seeing what works.
So you're a writer.
Yeah.
Right? And then does like culture influence your writing when you create?
Yeah, I feel like it definitely has over the last couple of years. Just when I do my own personal writing, I don't share too much, but I'm always open to share to friends and stuff. But I feel like just in the callback that I've had to community and starting to take on different community titles, learning language, just even finding family who are my cousins and stuff that my dad even like grew up with their parents, that it's like we're now making those connections now. So I feel like the comeback has definitely been influencing it a lot more just culturally, but it's more that you see that transition into where I'm like starting to find myself. And I feel like that influences the process a lot.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about, I shouldn't say it's crazy, but a lot of people don't realize how important culture is until you start reconnecting with it or start like bringing it more into yourself, because then everything's just, in my experience anyways, I shouldn't blanket that across everyone, but things just start making more sense, or you start feeling more at peace with yourself. So then decisions become more easy. I shouldn't say more easy, but they just feel more correct.
It's that blood memory just being awakened
Yeah.
from so many generations ago.
Blood memory, I love that. I was going to say muscle memory, but that's a little different.
Yeah. Just a little.
Yeah, so one day maybe we'll have like a Morgan Rashke writing a book of a memoir, book of poems or something.
Maybe.
That'd be right.
I've always had that in the back of my mind, but just focusing on school right now and getting that.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Since you're in school, is there a lot of... I had this conversation with people about how when you're in school, the act of pleasure reading is not existent until you're done. So you probably do a lot of writing. Do you like write a lot of things out of just pleasure right now?
I think it takes a little bit of a different transition just because I have like more of like my actual work, but then all the thoughts that I have just when I'm going about my day, that suddenly I just like have a line that's just like really encompassing or beautiful that I think makes a good moment. I'll put that in like my notes app or write it down somewhere just to so I have it for later.
So you have it for when you create that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, book of poems,
Yeah.
poetry, writings.
You're putting a lot of pressure on me. I'm feeling like I'm gonna have to come up with something now.
Well, not right now. It's like, 20 years
no.
down the line, you're going to have so much written. You're like, I might as well just compile it into a book.
You never know.
Yeah, never know. Never know. Maybe you'll be an amazing scholar by then when you're done school.
Oh,
I don't even know what you're doing. What are you doing at school?
Yeah, so I'm actually taking a master's of arts in counseling psychology. So I'm writing my thesis at Adler University in Vancouver.
Nice. Art counseling. Can you
Yeah,
explain
or
that a little bit?
Master of Arts in counseling.
Oh, in counseling. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it was this amazing, like joining of doing a painting while you're in counseling.
Well, there is that program at the university, but that's not my stream.
That's not yours. So you're going into counseling.
Yeah.
Where do you want to focus that in afterwards?
I think I'm more thinking about the research right now, just with how we can start to incorporate maybe not just in Indigenous knowledge into counseling, because I think there's a lot more work that we need to do just as in educating ourselves as a society. But I think what will really help us get there is more like a decolonial therapy or decolonial thought process within counseling, just so that we start to slowly let this facade of this world just fall away until we see what it really is for.
Yeah, it's true. And that's it's important work, because when you think about the colonial aspects of how Indigenous people were treated in any medical institution, it's very confining, and it doesn't really give the impression that they want to open up. Plus, also you have the residential schools that blocked them in and created all this trauma. But decolonizing counseling, how does that look?
I feel like a lot of theories definitely put the responsibility of mental health on the individual without acknowledging that a lot of things within our everyday lives, how we interact with just people at our work, people in our family, people within our general communities, how they're also influencing that mental health, and just not the individual responsibility that that person has on their mental health, but more the community responsibility, and we have for all kind of helping each other alleviate that, because if you just put all of that responsibility in one person's hands, like you're throwing a party and you get one person to do the food and the decorations and all of that, it just creates an overwhelm. But if you have a bunch of people who are all coming together, one person's doing the decorations, one person's doing the food, another person's getting the board games, anything, it kind of distributes that responsibility, so it makes it an easier time. And so you can apply that to anything within everyday life. It's not necessarily just like focusing on the trauma or the things you want to talk about, work through within your everyday life, the existentialness. It's more so that division of resources, division of labor, division of like helping each other out so that we can all reach bigger places together instead of all at once.
It also makes sense because when you think about having this thing where you said everyone helps together, you're healing the community, not just the person, but also a lot of Indigenous cultures, or I feel a lot of job placements now are learning to realize the focus on people's strengths instead of forcing everyone to learn one thing. They find out what they're good at so they can cultivate that. So then everyone just becomes good at what they're good at. And then at the end, it should all work out. Does that kind of make sense? What I said?
Yeah, like the DEI divisions, diversity, equity, and inclusion ones, where they're like, we want people from these backgrounds or these ones because they can give us different knowledge and different ways of how we can understand how to work better and incorporate everybody, because we all have unique abilities. But that's also like at the community level, that's what we can focus on too when it comes to that like decolonial therapy and just getting outside of this routine 9 to 5 needing
Yeah.
money and all that. Like you have one friend who really loves to bake and make bread and whatnot.
Then
You
let's
have-
encourage that. Let them bake.
Yeah, let them bake. And then you have another friend who's really good at like doing like textile work and they crocheting or knitting or something
Yeah.
like that. Like we can all focus on the things that bring us joy,
Yeah.
our passions, our hobbies. And eventually it leads to that like shared resource where eventually we all come together. One person has an excess of this, one
Yeah.
person has an excess of that. We trade. You don't need to work to get those things. You can
Yeah.
rely on the people around you.
And then people are going to see what you do and love it and maybe want to help or join in. So then they can create a passion for it. And next thing you know, you have a bunch of people doing the same thing. But then it's just multiple little people doing what they enjoy. I have this conversation with a lot of people all the time about what brings you joy. It's like, why are you doing all these things right now if it doesn't make you happy? Let's focus on things that make you happy.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that message.
No.
It might be hard.
It's hard to really look inside and just because we're so focused on what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And just that big overlooming thing that comes with a job, and then it also brings us back to the money and having to think about that and going to school.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like the things that we love, the things that we're passionate about, can also be a way to help give back to community and give back to the people around us if it's given that space to see where it takes you.
Yeah. Does what you do now bring you joy?
Trying. Right now, I'm
Yeah.
just getting the accreditation for
Yeah.
counseling, so I'm more so just doing those basic skills, but I'm very open-minded about where the writing my thesis and where that can take me and just how we can look at the world in a little different framework that can really help us.
How is it when you're writing your thesis on decolonizing counseling, but you're in a colonial institute where they're telling you these confines that you have to create your thesis in? Is there a little bit of a struggle there between that, or you're like, I just need to get my research done in this narrow so I can graduate and then I can make change?
And I think that's where a lot of problems are coming with new students coming into universities and bridging out of just Indigenous studies, because obviously within Indigenous studies, I think it's now at the point where in a lot of universities, Indigenous people are starting to have that narrative now, and they're starting to be the professors and the academics within those departments. But our knowledge applies to all different types of academic fields, whether it be biology, chemistry, sociology, everything. And I think in trying to, when you're starting to find Indigenous people going into those fields and trying to bring that Indigenous knowledge, especially in research where it's based off of just like mostly what professors want to research or what they have researched in the past and how they want to advance that field within themselves, but they're also wanting to be inclusive of Indigenous knowledge at the same time. But they're often saying like, oh, I don't have the credentials, so I can't take you on as like, I can't be your advisor, you can't help you out with that. But I think oftentimes they're forgetting that that's because we've been kept out of these places, so it's not going to have that representation. And when you're trying to create that relationship with Indigenous students within these Western academic and colonial institutions for doing your postgraduate or undergraduate degrees, you have to understand that you just have to give that the benefit of the doubt, give that student and know that they're bringing something different to the table that you maybe don't have that understanding in because it's a different culture, it's a different language, it's a different way of life. But you kind of have to trust the Indigenous people that we're going to bring that and understand that it's still keeping us out by saying that you don't have the ability because that's not your research. Well, there's not that research anywhere.
Yeah. It's like we're here creating that change. We're doing that.
Just have faith in us along the way, and
It'll happen.
It'll happen.
We'll get there. It's true when you think about that, because if you think about Indigenous research teams or Indigenous focused research teams, it's all in community, it's all storytelling. There's not a lot of quantifying that can go on right now, maybe because it's still pretty quite fresh and new. But it's interesting when you go into a study group, say you're doing a study and they have like, what's it called when you do a study and they're the beginning part of the study and they have nothing added to them. And then they do another group where they added a variable.
Yeah, like the control group
There we
and
go.
then the
Yeah,
experimental group.
yeah, and they do that kind of thing, but you wouldn't do that with an Indigenous community because
Well, there's ethics.
there's ethics, exactly. So like it's all based on lived experiences and going forward with that. But then you see some academic people coming into this community. I'm using an example because I worked with an organizing before, and the main people were white people, well, not Indigenous people, I should say, and then they were working with a bunch of Indigenous people and they just didn't understand. So they kept trying to force their view of how to collect information. They needed to get more numbers. They needed these things raised up. And we're like, that's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't want to see the cross section of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I'm getting at with this.
Yeah.
But
It oftentimes they don't understand the different levels to like how Indigenous or like Indigenous organizations can run, whether that be like organizational government or whether that just be like a nonprofit or things, because there is Indigenous influence, which means like you have a start goal, you have an end goal, and people taking you there, but the journey is being influenced by like Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous experiences, elders, something like that. You have Indigenous like piloted, which again start and end, and you have Indigenous people in the pilot seat bringing you there, but it's not necessarily and they can influence the journey, but they still have a way to get there, and
Yeah.
a place predetermined by the organization. And then you have Indigenous led, where they have the start point, they have the end goal, and they're influencing where that end goal is and the ways that you get there.
yeah. See, that makes so much sense because you need to always have a starting point and end point. But then we also have to have room for the route. Because what's that old saying? It's like there's always an end goal, but it's the journey that's the most important part. I don't know if that's the same for research, but
I mean, different ways, different
sometimes you
capacities
just
can
want to
go.
get to the end.
Yeah,
Like
just
I'm
get
sure
to-
like with your thesis, you're like, I just need to get it done now.
Yeah, I just want to get into the game and start doing it. I'm in the process of looking at different advisors right now at my university and just
Nice. How
talking
many
to
more
different
years do you have
people.
your master's?
So it's a 2-year program straight, and so I finish in like around August of 2026.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
hmm
And you're writing your thesis on decolonizing counseling.
I hope to find a bridge between the two, just in like bringing that more decolonial thought into like the counseling or therapy practice.
Talking about the word decolonization, when you bring that word up into some groups where they're not fully familiar with it, do you feel that they have like their backup right away? As an example, I mean, when I say it around people when I don't know what they mean, they instantly think that I mean tear down the system. It's like, well, that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, we can learn to go forward by decolonizing some thoughts. Like I use the term, I use the example of the binary, like male and female. It's like as soon as you stop thinking in those rules and realize there's more genders, I'm like, that's a decolonial thought. I was like, it's a very Western colonial view that pushed that idea onto us as Indigenous people. It's like, so these are things that I'm saying about decolonize. We can start broadening our mental structure to think outside of these rigid rules that were given to us.
Yeah, it's not about tearing the whole system down, but more so shining a light on the system and seeing where the gaps are and where
Yeah.
it's not needs a little bit more work, and just really looking at it from the picture of what it is and not bringing in any like ego into it, and just understanding that we're humans, we make mistakes, there's different ways we uphold colonialism, but it's not ever one person's responsibility. And also that when we bring up aspects of being ignorant to X, Y, and Z, whether it be like land back or whether it be residential schools or whether it be just about anything surrounding just humans' rights or even Indigenous rights, you oftentimes have to know that ignorance is not a bad thing. It just means you don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like a lack of knowledge in that area. And oftentimes I feel like the word ignorance carries such like a gasp nowadays that it's like, oh, they're not taking the time. But it's like, well, that just means that they don't know. And we come from different backgrounds. And sometimes, again, having that light shone onto it seems like like a deer in headlights. But oftentimes you have to just like take it for what it is and understand that the world's a lot bigger than just that one perspective.
Yeah, definitely. We're also talking about the word ignorance. There's also the willfully ignorant. That's the negative.
Yeah, the people who are just not knowing and staying in that
Yeah,
bliss.
purposely. Be like, I don't want to learn because I'm happy where I'm at. Like, okay, that's not growth.
No. And ultimately, they don't realize that because of these systems and because of the, like, because oftentimes in my classes, we talk about, like, a theory called feminist theory. And so there's a lot of, everybody's thinks, oh, a feminist, all that, and just because the theory is labeled that, but it's more so understanding the different types of systems, and both societal and governmental, that actually lead to oppression of people, and these different types of, like, hierarchies with, like, rich and poor and privileged, non-privileged, just division of classes or whatnot. They don't realize that we're all kind of victims to that, and ultimately, though, feminism, when they talk about these systems, they're lacking the acknowledgement that it's actually colonialism that created those systems.
Yeah. All of it,
All of it.
essentially. And people don't see it that way.
No.
And then when we say decolonization, they're like, oh, you're just a Native person that wants to tear down what we created.
No.
No. Like you said, we want to shine a light on it so we can have more constructive criticism on it, and we can all grow together as a people.
Yeah, because ultimately we're all suffering in some type of way, whether that be just aspects of gender, sexuality, mental health, race, like, abilities, like, we're all being kept out in different ways because we all come from a background and some type of experience that causes us to have a little bit harder time existing. And ultimately, like, being able to, like, solve that, whether it be just all the things or even just, like, mental health, where you're just feeling a little bit sad because you've gone through a rough time in life, just through the ebbs and flows of it, and not realizing that you're also a victim of that because you don't have that community support. We live in such a colonial and individualistic society that suddenly all that responsibility is on you in order to solve that, in order to go get a job, go feed yourself, go focus on your mental health, have friends, all of it. But
It's a lot of pressure.
Just understanding that we're all victims to it, regardless of the capacity. And that's what decolonialism, or, like, indigenizing, like, government and society is all about. Is about acknowledging that we can all get to the finish line together. There doesn't need to be all these people falling behind in the process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or people getting worried that they're losing a seat at the table, but no, we're just making the table bigger so we can all sit at it. It's a big difference. And, like you mentioned, the word victim, about people needing to realize that we're all victims of the system. I think there's a big difference about knowing that you're a victim of a system and, like, victimizing yourself of a system. And I feel a lot of the world right now, this is just, like, the political climate that I see this facing towards Indigenous people, and it happens all over the place. When you really look at it, people are not crying wolf. They're saying that we are crying wolf, being like, we're victimizing ourselves. But, like, no, we now have a voice, and we're saying what's happened to us, and you're not listening still. It's like, so we have to be louder. And that we're louder, you're accusing us of being angry natives. And I was like, we're allowed to be angry because this happened. And then you have Polyev, who's saying that residential schools had a purpose, who's our potential new prime minister. And then, like, yeah, we're not victimizing ourselves. We're realizing that we're a victim of the system, and we're just trying to correct it.
And oftentimes it's, again, those people's ignorance that shows that they're also victims of the system, because if you look at just all over the world and how colonialism oftentimes takes Indigenous knowledge and uses it for itself and claims it, and then acts like it's a new invention, and especially in, like, the medical industry, when you have, like, French explorers going to Africa and seeing how they had C-sections and then bringing that back overseas. How you have within the Americas them doing burr holes, like drilling holes in the skull in order to relieve pressure or fluid. That's also something that was adopted. You have, even within residential schools itself, or when it came to like skin grafts, that was done as experiments on Inuit people who didn't need skin grafts done, but they were just used as test subjects. The one that I think a lot of people are really surprised at, especially within, like, I think the generations of, like, the 2000s or the 90s, when it comes to, like, Health Canada, and, like, you need this many portions of, like, grains, you need this many portions of vegetables, this many portions of dairy, and it's like, that's made up. That's not a real thing. It's like, it's macrocalories and all that stuff, macronutrients, calories, and how that affects your body, but they use that in starving kids at residential schools in order to see how much food they actually needed in order to survive. So it's like the minimum amount of food in order for them to be healthy and survive and keep going was based off of that. And people don't realize these things that they're getting taught in school are also a part of that same system that they're, again, ignorant in, and it's not a bad thing. They've
Just don't know.
They've done that so that we don't know about it.
Yeah. And they need to learn. It's funny you talked about that, because I think it was quite recently where I read that, and I looked into it about the food guide of how many each thing that you need to survive. And I recently found out that it was because of residential schools, like you mentioned, they were testing with the Indigenous kids how much they can feed and how much they can't and what they're going to survive. So they were getting sick. Some were dying potentially. It was just an experiment to show the rest of the world, be like, oh, this is the minimum that they need to survive on, which is wild. And then you think about tuberculosis, that they're just testing it on Indigenous kids as well.
Yeah.
We're just lab rats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't aware of this history that's even so recent, just within the last like 250 years, even less than that, because the first actual like more missions that were set up in Kelowna were in the middle of the 1800s.
Yeah.
And so that's only 170 years ago when it's
wild.
like started to actually pick up. And it was a big shift in such a short time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a distant time ago. It's things where even my dad growing up here, and even talking about stories of my grandma, there used to be 1,000 people over in West Bank who were living off reserve in their own little town. Now it's like 80,000 people.
Yeah.
My dad talks about how Kelowna used to be 50,000 when he was growing up back in like the 60s and 70s. Now it's like 180.
It's huge, yeah.
It's a big shift in such a small time. It's not some distant past events.
No.
It's right now for a lot of people, especially on this side of Canada.
Yeah.
On the west end.
It's very recent. Like, we think about residential schools. My mother was in one, so it's not a far past. But people think that since they never did it, they don't need to worry about it. Be like, no, like, we need to learn the history so we can do better. Or like when I'm doing a show, I'll talk about a white joke or something like this, and some people get really, really offended. And I'm like, well, I'm not using this joke to talk about you specifically. I'm just talking about whiteness in general. I was like, and if you're being offended by that, I was like, maybe that's something that we should unpack right now, because everyone else understands that it's satire in a way. There is truth there, but we're turning into a joke so that it's not forgotten, so it's in your face still.
And it's like, Barbara, I don't care what you do in your own day. Like, this is like just a joke right now in general. It's not targeted at you.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't coming specifically thinking about you in mind.
But maybe I should now.
Yes.
Because you're triggered. So how far can we push this?
Let me use my counseling skills. Like, where's this coming from?
Yeah, exactly.
Who hurt you?
Would you like a cup of tea? Let's have a talk.
Yeah, what's on your heart?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that within our language. That's a term of endearment that we actually use to, like, when we're asking other people how they are, we ask "chikinas buus," which is like, "How's your heart?"
That's
So,
cute.
What's on it? What's going on in there?
Oh. Because, like, let's bring back to your language and where you're from. So you're from Treaty 8. Can you please tell me again what your peoples are again?
So I'm from Syilx Nation,
Yeah.
West Bank First Nations. So raised up in Chetwynd, born in Dawson Creek, up in Peace River on Treaty 8. But I came here every summer and got to just hang out with my different aunts and uncles, and also just live on the lake. I was in hockey school, actually, when I was coming here as a kid in the summers, and I remember we'd go to Gyro Beach, just like down the way, and I remember I'd be playing there and just like going to the beach at the end of the day, just around like 3 or 4 p.m., just to like soak in some sun. And I always remember my dad like pointing across the lake and like, "That's where your grandma was born, that's where we're from,
Yeah.
like, that's our place."
Nice.
So
when you moved back to the Okanagan, did it feel like a homecoming?
it
in a way?
did in a lot of ways, because I was still very familiar with it. Like, I think it's a lot different being raised in one part of the province, but then also knowing that like your history is rooted in somewhere different, because my dad is Indigenous, but my mom is white, and she's very acknowledging about just like their history. Like, even in her sense, she grew up with a lot more of her Indigenous culture. She grew up like knowing her kilt clan back in Scotland, and also like doing Irish dancing. So she was a little bit more connected, and she was very acknowledging just of that, and she understands that even being like a mixed person and having that white part and that Indigenous part, it's kind of different when the land that you're on is like, you know, even if it's that one root of your lineage, it's like it connects you so much more. It just really lets you have that relationship that's so much more intentional, tangible, and just having it talked about, knowing like we've been here for thousands of years. Like, it's so powerful in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It is powerful in a lot of ways. And you mentioned like your mother knew her background from Scotland?
Ireland and Scotland.
That was close.
And
Close.
Belgium as well.
Yeah. But I use this as an example all the time where people are like, oh, well, you're from Canada, you've been here a long time, like you should have your cultural knowledge with you. It's like, well, the difference was that we were colonized and it was pretty much wiped clean. It was like where a lot of these European countries, they were able to keep their culture, not just European, like we'll say Mexico, any place that was able to stay true into their culture and keep it thriving. It's a little different with Canada, where that was essentially nearly wiped out and we have to rebuild and reconnect. So I think that's pretty cool of your mother acknowledging that, you know, she was able to live within her Irish dancing, said that again, Irish dancing within her culture, and then acknowledging you being Indigenous to this area.
Being a parent of like a different culture to what your kid is uptaking, and just having that respect and acknowledgement, and just understanding that, yeah, she understands that takes a bigger proportion of my identity than maybe like her lineage does, but she understands the good work that I'm doing and the good work I'm participating in within my community.
Amazing.
So she's still loving with that.
Yeah, love that. Gotta love the support of parent. Okay, I want to talk about your language though, because you mentioned earlier you talked about how's your heart feel?
Yeah.
And then you're currently learning your language now.
Yes.
Yeah. And when did that start?
So it started back in, I believe it was 2022 now. I started over the 2022? Yeah, I think 2022 or 2023. And I started just learning, picking it up, attending classes, and slowly started advancing more and just really getting in touch with different elders and all that, just through the language house, and just being able to meet different elders and being connected. And then I also had my job within bringing the salmon home as a Salmon Warrior in my nation, just to also help give me different lessons, teaching, kind of rounding out even different aspects of language and just place names, different processes of like the fish and the salmon.
So you said you're a Salmon Warrior?
Yes.
Yeah. Do they have fish camps around Okanagan, or is it somewhere else?
So our hatchery is in Penticton, but
Yeah.
yearly we run a type of camp for young adults aged around 18 to 29 who are just starting to emerge into the adult world and are wanting to learn more about salmon and maybe start to take on more responsibilities within community and really take on that community title of advocating for salmon passage and restoration on the Columbia.
Because the salmon are important for Indigenous people around here.
Yeah,
It's huge.
Big food source.
Yeah, big
It was
food source.
renewable.
Yeah.
Every year you'd have anywhere from, it was around 50 to 100 million just coming up the Columbia.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be these little like tiny ones that you have now that are like maybe a foot and a half long. They were anywhere from like the Chinook were 5 to 5.5 feet long.
Yeah. And now they're tiny.
Yeah, and this sockeye were, I'd say around like 4. Yeah.
It's wild. I am sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but I wanted to get back to learning your language, because it's always I shouldn't say contested, because language is dying across Turtle Island with people wanting to learn, and they're trying to create avenues for people to learn it all. But then it's a hard ask to get our young people to learn their Indigenous language. And then when we get older, did it feel more of like I am ready to learn it now, or was it more of like I need to learn it so that it doesn't die out?
A little bit of both. I think my reconnection journey is a little bit different than a lot of people's, even than I'd say compared to a lot of like my first cousins and stuff, just because, yeah, I was raised out of community and my grandmother had passed at a very young age when my dad was very young. And so he kind of took on that responsibility of like looking after his younger siblings and just making sure they the ranch was run and everybody was fed, everybody was helped out. And so there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity when I came along in order to really have those connections, just because he had that connection severed himself. Like, he grew up with his cousins and running around Kelowna and West Bank and riding their horses, doing different stuff. But it's a little bit different when it came to me, just having that next generation after being cut off. So I didn't grow up learning language at all. I grew up knowing where I was from, who my family were, all of those important things, family names, all of it. The, kind of like the things that people hold really dear when they're trying to reconnect back to community, of just like really stating who your lineages are and how you're, like, who claims you in a lot of different ways. And so when I came back to the Okanagan, back to the homelands in 2017 to start doing my bachelor's, I kind of got plucked out of community. And it was interesting because it started with the Salmon Warrior camp, because I had just gotten status the year prior. We had been waiting for a long time, and with a lot of different, like, court rulings over the years, and being able to have status reinstated both for my great grandfather and grandmother, having it passed to me, and finally had that confidence in order to maybe start reaching out and doing that. So I started doing different language things, and slowly I think I got pulled different ways in the community, being like, hey, you have a lot of capacity and you like to do this, let's do something.
Let's give them more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been only a couple years now, but I think it's been a very jam-packed last, like, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Of language knowledge?
Language, Salmon Warrior stuff.
All of
just,
it.
All of it.
Just coming in there.
Yeah.
But, like, I always feel these things, like you said, it's blood memory. So I feel like it just comes a little more natural. Do you feel when you're learning your language that it's a little harder to take in because you never grew up around your culture, or are you retaining it well?
I'm retaining it well. I'd say that I'm like around high beginner to like low intermediate level, so I can have decent conversations. I can talk about my family, my likes, dislikes, just where I'm going, all that type of.
That's pretty
casual
awesome.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just like higher conjugation, still getting there, still doing that. But yeah, I think a lot of the things that really is hard about learning Indigenous languages is just trying to understand that even the structure and how you're organizing different things it's different ideologies and different ways of viewing the world, whether that be with like time or gender or even like possession of worldly things. It's all a little bit different.
I agree with that. I think that's one thing I find hard with language. Like with my language, I'm learning it as well right now, and it's going pretty well. But we talk like Yoda, like eat I am.
Yeah.
Like
Very stoic.
Very stoic. Yeah, exactly like that. And it's everything is not gendered, so it's just all in context. We have gendered words like mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, but there is no he, she, or anything like that in my language.
No pronouns.
No pronouns. Like it's interesting. Well, I shouldn't say there's no pronoun. They say they, like them over there.
Yeah.
But like,
and it's in reference to a person, but not specifically referencing their gender.
yeah, exactly. It's in context of who we're talking about. So I found that was an interesting transition when I was learning my language. I still am. It's a process for myself. The downside with mine, I don't live in my community, so all the words that I learn, the sentences that I'm learning, I'm enjoying it, but I don't have anyone to talk to with it. So I'll try to specifically call like an aunt that I know that can speak the language, and she's like, can we just like tried a few sentences, and she's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I was like, well, this is why I'm calling, so I can learn.
I'm like, please, I'm trying my best here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I have no one else to talk to around here. And they're like, why don't you call your mom? I was like, because she's an idiot too. She doesn't know. Just kidding. She's not an idiot. My mother's a very, very sweet woman. She just knows about as much as I do now. And so I've been trying to convince her to join the language class that I have. But the downside is the language class is in the Yukon, and I'm like the only one that's zooming in, so everyone else has the class that they can talk to around them, where they'll be like, all right, stop, we're gonna get Dustin speak now. It's like, well, it doesn't have that conversational level. So that's where I want to get to. Don't know if there's a follow-up question for you on that. It was just me telling my part, but
sure. No, but it's very similar within our gender structures within languages as well, because we do have our like two-spirit representation and our two-spirit gender, third gender, but then when it comes to just like, yeah, more of just gender within language, it's more restricted to like more lineage tracking and stuff like that. And also factoring just like how your parents identify, how you identify, because when it comes to the word that you call, in Silkjin, the word that you call your mother or your father or your aunt or your uncle is different whether it's on your mom's side or your dad's side. And so it's also referencing like the word that you call your mom or your dad is based off of whether you're a boy or you're a girl, or you identify within that. We have a general word for parent as well, but it's taking in your identity and what you're referring to your parent as. And then when it comes to you referring to your aunt or uncles on your mom or dad's side, or even your grandparents too on your mom and dad's side, it depends on whether they identify as your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
So it also takes into account like their gender ideology too in referencing your grandparents. So it follows gender and also making sure that it's validated.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's how you track the lineages, understanding that like these people are parents in here, and it also still has that queer two-spirit representation in there too.
That's cool. I mean, it feels like there's so much more layers to learn when you're trying to learn the language, but when you hear about it, it's pretty fantastic. But then if I'm thinking about it now, how many languages or how many words are in the English language, can you imagine if we had even more that showed that you had differentiate if it was your mother's side of the family or the dad's side of the family? That's just so much.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I mean, you're just saying uncle on my mom's side. So it's just an amalgamation of words at the same time too.
I don't feel like it's the same.
No. I mean, more words also put in there in order to describe it, where it's centralized just within one word and one concept.
I love the idea. I shouldn't say that I love the idea. It's an actual thing. I think it's a fantastic language. Yeah, that's what I was going to say concept again, but that would have been rude. It's like, no, it's not a concept. It's an actual thing.
Yeah.
But I hope that more people will learn their native language, because it is dying out. There's less people to speak to about it. I think in my hometown, well, I shouldn't say that. My parents now are becoming that elder age, but our elders that were around, they're all gone now. So we don't have our knowledge keepers. So we need to create that space to be those knowledge keepers. And then yourself, growing up where you are, then coming back here to the homeland, are you feeling that you're going to grow up as you get more older?
Yeah.
You're going to be a knowledge keeper?
I feel like that's one of the things that a community more so decides, whether they agree that you have that knowledge and you've been entrusted with that and you do a good job in sharing it and using it for speaking to the right cause. And I think that's also the same ideas that it comes back within people who are going along their reconnection journey, because I think a lot of the times where we get so eager in order to get back in the community that we often forget that there's a certain way that we also conduct ourselves within ceremony, or when we're given knowledge, or even when it comes to just like our gatherings and stuff like that. We often, it sounds very blunt, but oftentimes you have to remember that like community doesn't owe you anything, because we have a way of just, yes, you can be Indigenous and have that ancestry, but I think there's also a way of having an Indigenous mindset, an Indigenous way of existing that also factors into that so much. And I think when it comes to our communities who've spent so long in order to just like safeguard that knowledge and safeguard those traditions, those stories, in order for them to just exist in the modern day, I think there's also a very big, like, trying to like grasp all of those and gather all of those things so that we can learn and really reconnect. But you have to understand that our communities had different structures back in the day. Not all knowledge was freely shared. Sometimes it was kept within specific families or certain community roles. You'd have different versions of stories that are all leading to different metaphors, different teachings, and it depends on your role or your family and community which version you hear in order to understand the teachings within that. And understanding that there is a lot of knowledge that's going to be available for you when you're reconnecting to community, but there's a different way of also like being respectful about it and understanding that there have been people who've been fighting for so much longer just to be able to give you this opportunity as well.
That's very smart to say about having to, the stories that you hear are different, or what you're going to learn while you're reconnecting with community. Because we also have a lot of urban natives that are reconnecting with community, but they're also not in their community. They're in a community. So having to learn someone else's culture, but still take it into yourself by knowing that you're from visiting an outside culture. And I think this is what a lot of people don't understand as well, is that there's so many different tribes and bands across Canada that we're all not the same. So like myself, I'm reconnecting with culture, and I feel like I'm doing pretty good at it, but I also got to remind myself that I'm reconnecting with culture through a phone from people back home, or through Facebook, through email, but I'm also reconnecting with culture here. So I'm learning a lot of local ceremonies, local things. And I would voice and be like, oh, this isn't necessarily how we do things at home. I was like, but I'm not going to push that on anyone. I'm doing the ceremonies they have here. I just noticed the differences. They're not big differences, but I think there needs to be space for people that are reconnecting with culture when they're not in their own communities.
There's different protocol that we have to undertake depending on whichever nation you are in, or whichever ceremonies you are trying to participate in.
Yeah, because I acknowledge that I'm a visitor here. Because people, when they instantly say like, oh, you're Indigenous, can you do this? I'm like, okay, I am Indigenous, but I'm also not Silk. I can never say the word properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly, that back of the throat there. But a lot of people don't recognize that. They just think since I'm Native that I'm Native all across Canada, which in essence, yes, I am, but I'm not from this nation. I'll do my best to represent properly, but people need to be conscientious that we can be from all over the place. So we're an amalgamation of coming in. But that's beside the point. I want to talk about what you mentioned earlier about being Indigenous and then being Indigenous. Because like you can say you're Indigenous, but are you being Indigenous? Because I want to bring this up because I have this conversation with other people about people reconnecting with their culture, or people, like the term pretendian that comes up, where people come in and they're like, oh, I'm Indigenous because so-and-so in my family had this relationship. And then they just want it because they want to get a status card, or they just want to be known that they're Indigenous and collect whatever benefit that they can. And it's like, I can tell that the main difference between finding if someone is a pretendian, in my eyes, is someone that is actively participating in reconnecting with their culture. Like that are learning the ceremonies, that are going out and trying to learn more, that is taking an active interest to go to a powwow, instead of just being like, oh yeah, I'm Indigenous. Yeah, there's a difference between being Indigenous and being Indigenous.
Yeah, being Indigenous for both like your identity, but also for like a performative purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that we need to not be more structured in that, because I don't want to ever say that, because it's a hard conversation to have with people. Because beforehand there was a time where when someone said they're Indigenous, we're like, yeah, come on in, cousin, let's have a good time. It's a party. But I feel that the conversation is going to become more and more strict these days, because more and more people are coming forward trying to take advantage of indigeneity and seeing what benefit they can get from it. And I feel that it's a conversation that's going to become more and more heated in the next few years. Because like, where do we draw a line? Is there a line to be drawn? We never want to quantify someone's indigeneity.
No.
So like, where does this conversation come in? And it's a conversation I feel that a lot of people are going to have, but I have no idea on where that conversation is going to go to. But I know that it's going to happen.
Because we can acknowledge somebody's lineage and be like, yes, you have an Indigenous lineage, Indigenous ancestry, but I think a lot of different people do, and I think it comes to just that way of conducting yourself within being an Indigenous person. It's not just about the color of your skin or your ancestry, or like whether you're like learning all the language, learning all the culture and stuff. I think it really comes down to the mindset that you're bringing to it as well. Understanding that yes, we're all Indigenous people, we all have that checkbox filled. It's also about the way that you're operating within this colonial world, and whether you're taking those steps in order to actively uphold the system or tear it down slowly, brick by brick, and doing that work and making sure that's like, I'm Indigenous and I'm also conducting myself in Indigenous ways. I'm thinking in decolonial or Indigenous thought concepts, knowledge, XYZ. It's not just based off of a lineage at that point. It's about embodying it within your everyday life as well.
And it's a difference that I feel like we need to acknowledge it's not a difference, I shouldn't say that, but it's, we need to acknowledge people that are putting in the work. Because it is work, for sure right now, even though it's like, it's a cultural work and it's very gratifying and it's very fulfilling, but it is work because we're rebuilding. And you are working in the front lines trying to decolonize a very colonial structure, like counseling, because a lot of Indigenous people, we need people to talk to.
Yeah.
And like we need our community to be able to talk to. And then like you said, if we heal the community, instead of focusing on the individual, it will indirectly focus on the individual because the community is helping each other.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times with counseling within like this colonial sense, it oftentimes is bringing people aside from all the things going on within their life in order to digest it, pick it apart, understand it, and then send them back out into the world with that understanding of trying to also change the system as well, or like understand where the problem areas of their life are. But when you look at just Indigenous ways of doing that counseling, we had different things like Sweat Lodge, when you would have that emotional experience where you're just saying what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for, all the things that are weighing on your heart, even just when you're just in that darkness, in this sweat house, and you're just really getting your mind flowing and letting just letting that warmth seep into your soul as well and let that find a different place. That was therapy for us, even when it comes to aspects of like potlatch out on the coast as well. That was a way of them redistributing resources in the community so we could be able to have different types of textiles or food or resources that we needed. There's different ways of different Indigenous ways of mental health strategies or mental health cultural practices that we had that aren't such an individual way, because ultimately if one seal custom that we actually used to do is that we would actually signal to community when we were having like negative thoughts or dark energies surrounding us, and it was more so for like a longer period of time. Oftentimes we would paint our face completely black and like cover ourselves in a blanket and just walk around community in that obviously very dark essence, and letting people know that like that energy is within you and are following you around and influencing you.
Yeah.
And it gives a understanding to community where it's like if they've seen them in that position or within that mindset or within that emotionality for too long of a time, it's time to intervene and help them out, do the things that we need to in order to help get them to a better place.
Yeah. Build the community up. We all pitch in and help the person out.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be this just like one-on-one ways of dealing with mental health or counseling, because I think there's a lot of different ways that we can learn from each other, from our different experiences, from our different intersectionalities, from our different nations and languages, that will really help expand our ways of relating to each other, instead of just understanding with a therapist and a client about the situation and where it's going wrong, but actually working together to solve it.
Yeah. See, like that makes sense if you tear it down kind of a little bit into your friend circle. A little bit. You know how like you have a friend for different things in your life. You may have that one friend that you know that's going to be very silly and goofy and doesn't take anything too seriously, and that's the person you need to go for a laugh. You can have a friend that you need to go to that's going to help you emotionally express yourself and have a cry, or someone, or you have someone that you can be able to talk about books with. So you have that different avenues to go to that each can heal you in a different way.
And also that you can share resource in another way. You can share, like, help each other reach different goals or fulfill different needs. Because like, oh, you have that silly friend that you go and talk to, and then at the same time, yeah, they're really good at baking, and then we can make some bread, and you happen to be really good at crocheting, so you can give them some mittens for the winter season coming up. And it's just using all of our different abilities, all of our different personalities, our quirks, and who we are to actually like bring us closer together and give back instead of having to do everything ourselves.
Yeah, because we're not an island.
No.
Is that the phrase? Like, no man's an island?
I don't think I've heard that one.
No man is his own island?
That one sounds a little more familiar.
Yeah, something like that, where they're like, you can't be one person and you can't do everything. You need to be able to let people in to be able to help. And I feel like that's a hard thing sometimes to have someone to say, help.
And it's hard under just like the colonial structures that we work in and how it's birthed capitalism and creating money in order for us to survive. But money's not real anymore. It used to be gold, copper, silver, or different natural resources that we use that had value in them. But if we think about money now, it's just electronic. Like, why can I pull out my phone, like double tap the button, and it somehow looks at my face, and I'm able to like go buy food and necessities just like that? But yet there's people who are living on the street who are just trying to survive and are kept behind glass windows of grocery stores when there's food just going bad sitting behind there.
Literally.
It's like money's not real, but it has real life consequences now.
Yeah. It's gotten to a point where, money runs the world right now. Money runs politics right now. Money is this thing. It's not real. Like when you think about the bills you have, it's a piece of plastic. Like if it gets the light beside it, shrivels up like a piece of, like it doesn't make sense. And American money is linen still, I think.
Cotton, I thought it was.
Is it cotton?
Yeah.
Something.
Because I thought it was, because they have their history with the slave trade. And then that's why they can wash their bills and do all that and they uphold, but ours are not.
Plastic.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Or paper.
No paper. All right. Well, Morgan, I had a very good time chatting with you, but we are coming to our end.
I had a great time as well.
I quite enjoyed myself. I feel, even though I've known you for a few years now, we've never actually had a moment where we can just sit down and have a conversation. And I don't know why. It's like, I'm thinking about the interactions that we've had in the past, and they were either at an art show or at a bar. They were very superficial situations. But I knew that you were in school. I didn't know that you were in your master's. I think you might have told me that last time, actually.
Possibly last summer.
Possibly. Yeah. But we're also in a bar, and it was loud. And we're yell talking at each other. But you're such a multifaceted person, and I hope that I stay friends with you so I can see the trajectory you have, and then one day I can read your book of poems.
Oh gosh, I'm putting that on the to-do list now just for you.
Yeah, exactly. Then you can create it, even if it's 50 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be dead by then because I did recently turn 40. You know, I plan to live till I'm 100, so I'll just be 90.
Oh my gosh, once I can't take care of myself, just take me out back.
Yeah, that's so true. But also, I'm really hoping that I can take care of myself.
Yeah.
I want to be an active 100-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be able to just like be that one that's still like getting out of bed and like going on runs in the morning.
Literally, exactly. Going for the walk, doing your thing.
And they may be slow, but they're still like keeping up with all the younger ones too.
Exactly. The tortoise and the hare, right? Yeah. I may have started out as the hare, but now I'm a tortoise. But I'm still finishing that crossing that finish line.
I'm not slowing down already, so it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep going farther and farther. Same with me. I'm not slowing down anytime soon. I hope not.
You got
we'll
it.
Find out.
I have faith.
Yeah, faith, exactly. Creator, right?
Please.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Morgan. Do you have any final words you want to say to your potential new followers? They're going to be like, hey, we love this person. Let's go follow them.
If you're ever looking for different opportunities in order to help highlight salmon restoration or have different avenues, whether that be working in different libraries or museums or different school districts, or you have just different organizations that you work with that want to bring rise to look at our technical studies that we have, like columbiariversalmon.ca. We always are trying to get the word out there.
Nice. You hear that, folks? Check it out. All right, everyone, thank you so much for paying attention, listening, watching another episode of Denhta. We'll be back in the future. All right, bye.
Bye.